Former Vice President Mike Pence's Chief of Staff, Mark Short, is part of a C4 group that calls itself the Coalition to Protect American Workers. That group shared with us its new poll, 400 likely voters in this current 3rd congressional district in Iowa. And it shows that voters, when they're talking about a generic ballot, prefer generic Republicans by a 6 percentage margin over generic Democrats.
A generic ballot has Republicans ahead in a lot of places, including in Cindy Axne's district. But the reality is that she candidly performs pretty well on a named ballot. But what we see is her support erode if she were to support the Biden tax increases on basis of several grounds. One is concern about family farms, but another is concern about part of the infrastructure package that requires taxpayers to purchase electric vehicle batteries. And I think that causes from China, and that causes a lot of concern for voters in Iowa.
So this poll looks at the 3rd district as it is currently drawn, where Democrats have a 4,000 registered voter advantage. Remember, though, the district boundaries will change later in the year as leaders pass those new boundaries that will take effect for the next 10 years starting in 2022. And I asked Short the impact of redistricting.
Well, I think that that's obviously an uncertainty for a lot of members across the country. But the reality is that as we've polled in places like Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Iowa, we continually see that Republican support is about 95% opposed to the tax increase. So if any district changes to include more Republican voters, that creates an even greater uphill climb for any current incumbent Democrat. But again, when constituents begin to learn as to what the tax increases go for and how significant they are and how widespread they potentially will be to all voters, then that support even erodes among Democrat voters.
Short's group is focusing its efforts on opposing the president's tax plan. Part of that's raising taxes on wealthier Americans, larger corporations. Now, the poll released by the group asked about taxes in this way. When it comes to taxes, should Congress increase taxes, lower taxes, or leave taxes the same as they are? Increase 21%. The poll found those wanting a decrease of 40%, keeping it the same 29%. Now, if you look at some other national polls, you'll show that there can be some higher support for raising taxes when the question is focused solely on raising taxes on wealthier people. I asked Short about the difference here.
Democrats are smart to frame their tax increases only the wealthy and only in corporations. But on the basis of our opposition is that there's no way they can get the revenue they're claiming they're going to get by only taxing those demographics. So for instance, when you look at potentially what they're asking for is $3 trillion in additional tax increases, the best case, if they raise taxes up to 28%, which some they're hoping for, would get you about 600 or 700 billion in revenue. So $2.3 trillion short of their goal. The reality is that as more and more details come out of the plan, it's going to become apparent that this is a tax increase on all Americans. I think particularly for those in Iowa would be concerned about those on family farms and what happens if you begin to lower the capital gains tax as far as Biden has suggested as to what the cap is. The reality is that people will not be able to pass their family farms on to future generations. But I think what we saw in the poll we did in Iowa 3 additionally was concerned that you're actually taking that money, you're taxing taxpayers, and you're requiring us to purchase electric vehicle batteries from China. So in essence, you're taxing Americans to purchase parts from China, which is actually creating jobs in China. And I think when voters learn that piece of it in particular, they're most outraged, which is why that's the focus of our new ad in Iowa 3.
Poll also asked about the IRS. The president's plan to double the size of the IRS in an effort to come after those that don't pay their taxes. The poll had said, do you support or oppose raising taxes to fund $80 billion worth of tax collectors at the IRS? That's the way the question was phrased. Support about a quarter, more than a half oppose this, 22%. They were unsure.
And I think that, again, when we say this is only going to be a tax on the rich, there's a lot of small businesses that would be subject to tax collectors coming in and knocking on their door. I think that concerns a lot of voters. And so that has been a feature of some of our ad campaigns in other swing districts. It's certainly a concern. Well, it showed in Iowa 3, but I think what perhaps showed better in Iowa 3 was again concern about family farms and also concern about shipping jobs to China.
A lot has changed since Short served in the White House. You had a Republican president with Donald Trump, Republicans controlling both chambers of Congress. I asked why Democrats are now controlling all of that.
Generically, our country has become more polarized because you don't have as many, let's say, moderate Republicans in the Northeast, nor do you have as many moderate Democrats in the South that you once upon a time had. And so our country is more polarized along partisan lines. But having said that, I think that requires, when you have an advantage, to go for it. And I think you look at 2008, 2009, when Obama was elected, it's when he passed Obamacare, it's when he passed massive stimulus. But I think he ran into a buzzsaw on cap and trade. It's when, in our first 2 years, we were able to get 2 Supreme Court justices confirmed and pass historic tax relief. But I think that, yes, Democrats may have control of Washington right now, but their margins are incredibly thin. I think ours were narrow. Theirs are incredibly thin. If you consider they can only lose up to 5 House members and not 1 United States senator in pushing these massive tax increases. So I think that they really have an uphill climb to accomplish what they're trying to do with this $3 trillion in tax increases.
President Trump had downplayed COVID-19's potential impact on the country in the months before the election, and now nearly 600,000 people have died with the virus since last year. I asked Short whether Trump and Pence could have been reelected last year if COVID-19 hadn't struck.
Certainly, the pandemic is something that nobody was forecasting, and I think presented an opportunity for us to accomplish actually many things in response. I think one day historians look back and say it's actually remarkable that you went from having no tests in February of 2020 to having conducted 270 million by the time you departed, that we were able to source resources for people who were sick from all over the globe to make sure that nobody went without a ventilator if they needed one. And then we produced multiple vaccines within a year. I think is pretty historic. I think clearly there were challenges in the communications, and what was communicated is what we were doing. And I think that in some cases that went awry. And I think, history will one day look back and make a better judgment as to how much that impacted the election. But I think that we have a lot to be proud of over the 4 years. And I think that the record that we had, I think, merges traditional conservative values with, I think, new voters that Donald Trump brought in that are concerned about trade and concerned about immigration, I think is a winning formula for the future.
I don't know why I had to keep popping up during that interview, by the way. All right, so what about his former boss here, Mike Pence? Well, we had asked about the VP's future and that relationship with Donald Trump. We'll talk about that next.